All right. Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of today's podcast. I am super excited for everybody that has watched so far and has followed the social media pages, followed every single episode so far. I'm really excited about today's episode. I'm here with Bryce Baker. He is say hi, Bryce.
Hi.
He's just a personal friend of mine. The biggest thing with the reason why I wanted to bring Bryce on was because he not only has been a good friend to me throughout the years in the door-to-door industry, but he has, been through the ups and downs. He knows what it feels like to go through the ebbs and the flows. And that kind of brings us into our topic for today, which is fear of rejection and fear of failure. And I couldn't think of anybody better than Bryce Baker to come on the podcast. So welcome, Bryce.
Thank you.
Clap.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think I met you, correct me if I'm wrong, was it 2020?
Hey, we met in 2018. We started our friendship and worked together in 2020.
True, because we met at like manager retreats and little things like that. Yeah. So when I met Bryce, we were at a company. COVID happened, a bunch of things got torn down with COVID. And then when I re-met Bryce this year, he had built a whole company. So that really stuck out to me because I'm like, okay, so he knows how to rebuild and he knows how to not only build from the bottom up or from a certain place up, but he knows how to rebuild over and over and over again. And that's kind of like the point of today's episode. So Bryce, that actually brings me into my first question. Like, how have you personally, what are your feelings towards like, rejection and failure over the years? And how do you feel like you have overcome that personally?
Yeah, I mean, short answer is just perseverance and goal setting. But it's crazy the amount of times in my life that I've had to reset. Whether that's in business or personal life, like we constantly, we have visions. I use a metaphor saying that life's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. And so many times we think that we have it and then we're missing the last piece. And then you're like looking for the last piece that's not there. So you have to put the whole puzzle back in the box and start over again. And then eventually you get really good at putting puzzles together and you can put it together quickly. But failing forward is like, I guess we're all going to fail. Mm-hmm. Like it's inevitable. There's no such thing as not failing. But you have to continue to put one foot in front of the other and not be afraid of failure. You can't be. It's if you expect it, mm-hmm. then it's not as bad as it would be if it's unexpected or blindsides you, right?
True.
And so you're going to fail, but it's failing forward and making sure you come back stronger each time. So it's, it's almost like the stock market, right? The stock market goes up and it goes down, but it doesn't go down as low as it was when it started. And then it goes up and then it goes down a little bit. Every time you fail, you've still grown within that failure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. But you know what? I feel like that's really cool of you that you have that mindset because not everybody does.
Right.
A lot of people think very black and white. They're like, I'm either failing completely or I'm succeeding completely. And so they don't see what you're saying, those little ebbs, those little tiny dips that don't necessarily define who you are as a person. So what would you say brought you, like, have you always thought that way or did something bring you to that point?
I don't know if there was a defining moment. I think that there was a moment where failure was frustrating to me because it was like, man, you put so much time and energy into different things, whether that's a personal relationship or a work relationship or an endeavor. And then when it fails, you're like, you can get discouraged, right? That's the black and white part of it, part of life. But I was so tired of it. It was like, okay, I need to start taking bits and pieces of that and applying it. When the failure happens, I got to take the good out of that for the next. And so that raised the failure out. That dip wasn't as low because I learned from it. So I use a terminology, without risk, there's no reward. But with every failed risk, there's the reward of knowledge.
Wow.
And so like, no matter what, even if I take a risk and I fail, I learned along the way. Mm-hmm. And so therefore the failure wasn't a complete failure.
Yeah.
So there's the positive that you can pull out of every failure, mm-hmm. do that to build onto your next endeavor, and then you'll continue an upward trajectory.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's kind of like I didn't fail. I was learning. I was acquiring knowledge at that point.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's an amazing way to think. A lot of people, not only in the door-to-door industry, it's a good example just because we do experience a lot of failure on the doors, on an everyday basis and as a whole on a business level. But this podcast isn't about the door-to-door industry. It does have to do with heartbreak in general. So what I guess piece of advice would you give people that have been through a failure, maybe like a divorce or maybe a failed business, but in a different industry, or, they had someone die in their life and they feel like they failed them? What advice would you have for them to kind of, when they're down in the dumps and they're just like on the very, what do they call it, like rock bottom? What advice would you give those people to get back up and have that will to keep forward?
Yeah. A couple of things. One, I've experienced those. So I've gone through a divorce. I've had failed businesses, failed sales teams, not just in this industry. I had a real estate investment company back in 2008 when the recession hit. Ooh. I lost multiple houses. You just can't get paralyzed in it. I think too many times we focus on the problem or the failure, and it causes paralysis and you're not moving forward. And so another analogy I tell people all the time is like, what's one of the dirtiest things out there, the most disease-ridden things, and that's stagnant water. You go to a pond, it breeds bacteria, it's stagnant. A river is clean water. You can go drink that because it's moving water. It's constantly moving. It's flowing.
Yeah.
And so you can't just stop just because life's not going your way. You can't stop, and you got to just keep pushing forward. And you literally, every situation in your life, you can find the positive in. And if you learn how to change your perspective and find the positive in every situation, then it's a lot easier to do it. And it's not easy. It's a challenge. Like, nobody wants to go through a divorce, but at the end of the day, there could be a positive in it. Maybe you're going to be happier. Maybe you're going to be that. And you feel like a failure because when you said those vows or that commitment, like you meant it and you thought that was your person, it ended up not being your person.
Yeah.
And so, but there's good that comes from it because maybe now you're going to find the right person, right? And I'm just using that as one simple thing. Same thing in business. You thought everything was right and this was your business and this was your destiny, or these were your people and this was your tribe. And they weren't. Okay, well, it gives you the opportunity to go find the right ones. Like, yeah. And so, like, just a little perspective change, it changes your entire mindset and how you go about things.
Yeah.
And you said rock bottom. Like, to be honest, like, that's the most dangerous place for me to be. That's one of my best. And I think your rock bottom changes. It has different altitudes along the way because you're
I love that.
You're going trajectories up, and so you're not falling as far each time. But I remember in 2019, like I was going through one of the worst times I've had, and I was my back was against the wall. Like, it was rock bottom.
Yeah.
I had made some poor investments. It was wintertime in the door-to-door industry. The finances weren't rolling in. And I thought I always had a nest egg where I could go, oh, can I get some money here or in a dance, or like, and like, this is just me being vulnerable, but like, hey, can I borrow some money? I know summer's coming around the corner. And the answer was no. And it was like, what do I do? My back was against the wall, and I was like, dude, it's December. And I've got Christmas, I got 5 kids, I've got this, I made some poor decisions and investments. And I literally, I remember this day vividly. I feel like my life changed at that moment, but I went to the store. It was December 6th. I went to the store and I used change to buy gas, $7.33 worth of gas, so I could go knock doors. And I went and ripped accounts. December, January, and I sold more than anybody's ever sold in the winter, in my opinion, up to that point. And I made really good money. I rebounded, I leveled up. And then COVID hit, right? And then we couldn't work. We got shut down for 12 weeks. But what's crazy, it doesn't happen in the 1099 world of door to door, but in our situation it did. They said, hey, we're going to take your last 3 months earnings and we're going to average it out. We're going to give you a weekly stipend while you're shut down for 12 weeks. And because my back was against the wall and I went and ripped for those December, January,
You had an
February,
amazing paycheck.
I got an amazing paycheck while I was off for 12 weeks. That was the
That's
first paid
so
vacation
cool.
I had in 10 years. But
Wow.
it was really cool because, so just when we think everything's like at its rock bottom, if you just continue to move forward, you can put yourself in a situation that you don't even realize you're going to be in and benefit from it. And it's kind of like karma. I don't believe karma's personally, like, I don't think if you do good, somebody will do good for you. Like, it's not good attracts good, bad attracts bad. That's my thought, logic, and karma. So if you're going out and you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're going to get rewarded for it. And too many times we stop that because we get paralyzed when something doesn't go our way.
I love that. I love that so much. A couple of things of what you said, like, you know, yesterday we were having core or that's what we call here in the door industry. It's like our morning meeting, our correlation. And one of the guys, he was pretty new, and he mentioned that he's had kind of an issue with, you know, failure getting to his head and keeping positive throughout the day. And he said something similar to what, or I said something similar to what Bryce was just saying right now. Like, I think a very practical approach. Sometimes when you're down in the dumps like that, it's really freaking difficult to move forward just because you're so negative and you're so in your head, and you know you get that paralysis that you were just talking about. So I think focusing on one positive thing, literally just one positive thing per day to move you forward. That's all you need. And like Bryce mentioned, when you have your back against the wall, that's when we see the best results at times, because you have everything to lose at that moment. Other times when you have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, you know, you have so many options that in your mind, your subconscious brain is like, oh, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll go to plan B or go to plan C, you know? But when your back is against the wall, that's when we show our true character.
Well, it is. Your true character comes out when your back's against the wall because, like you said, there's nothing to lose. Like, you can't go down anymore. You're there.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, it's all forward trajectory or nothing. And you're talking about finding the positive in it, and like, it's a tough thing to do. I wasn't always like that. So, and I'm pretty open to this, but so in 2014, my wife is in labor, my youngest son, in the hospital, and I get a call from my mom, and I thought it would be to congratulate me, but it was that my brother shot and killed himself. So he committed suicide. And like, he was my best friend. Anyway, talk about a whirlwind of emotions, right? You have your son being born, and you have your brother that just passed away. And I went into a really deep, dark spot for a very long time. I won't bore you with all the intricacies of that part, but in November, somebody said, so 3-4 months later, somebody said, find the positive in it. And to be honest with you, I flipped them off and walked away. Like, how do you find the positive in that?
Yeah.
And I remember vividly, I was duck hunting. It was December 12th that year. I was by myself, and I was just thinking, and I thought about it. I'm like, at my brother's funeral, we were only 1.5 years apart, so we were really close and a lot of the same friends. And my best friend growing up, all throughout time, him and I hadn't talked in like 5 years. He went on the wrong path, in my opinion. He right out of high school, he had everything, and then he lost everything because of decisions he made, whether that was family, friends, house, job, all of it. Long story short, he was at the funeral, and I didn't know that he had worked in fixing all of that, and it rekindled that friendship. And now we're brothers, like, we're best friends, and we're brothers. There was other relationships that got rekindled in it. And as sad as it is, like, and I don't want to say this in a way that it condones it, because if my brother was here today, I'd punch him in the face for the pain that he caused. But he's not suffering right now. And obviously he was suffering, right? And so there's a perspective, not saying that the situation was good, but there's a perspective of good in it. And once I realized that, I was like, there's good in everything. There's a positive in every single failure and every single defeat. Like, there literally is, you know, it's just about how you respond to it. And when you can find that moment and trigger it, and you can respond versus react, it'll make the difference.
Yeah. And, you know, that's actually, so I have like these like pivotal little moments in the door industry where Just situations happen that I just remember. And that's actually one of them. I remember back in 2020, excuse me, 2020. I was also, I think that was all kind of our year after it being really difficult. 2019 was one of my worst door-to-door years, and it was just really difficult for me. But 2020 was when I went and worked out with Bryce, and I remember him mentioning that to me. And I'd like for you, if you can, explain this concept to the audience. But reacting versus responding. Go ahead.
Yeah. So two quotes I live by. Be responsive versus reactive. So if you're reactive to something, it's kind of like you're identifying the problem. You're a problem pointer outers, like I say it. So an example is if I shattered my phone right now on the ground. There's a lot of people that would react to that, and their entire day would be ruined, and they'd be like, "Oh, my phone's broken. Oh my," or if you respond to it, I break my phone. I go, "Oh, well, I got to go to Verizon and get a new phone," right? And that just has a solution to it, and it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's annoying, but you don't even have to observe the annoyance. You just respond to it and you go fix it. So responsiveness comes with a solution mindset, and so you're looking at it, and I think a lot of that's just coming with expectations. We're talking about the door-to-door industry. I say it all the time. If you set the proper expectations with yourself too, and you know like if you're knocking doors, right? A lot of people aren't home. The weather's bad. It's too hot, too cold, raining, whatever, right? The area, the competition, all of those things are reality. It's going to happen, right?
External factors, yeah.
External factors, things you can't control.
100%.
But yet it drives you to call your manager and say, this area is bad, or, oh, it's too wet outside, or it's just, but we know all that going into it. So why react to it? Right? You set the expectations of like, this is what it is. And we just go and do it.
Yeah.
And it's not a problem anymore. And you respond to it with a solution, and you just push through it.
Yeah. You know what? The way that I've always viewed that, and it kind of it comes full circle with what you just said, is reacting comes from a place, like an emotional place. You're just kind of, it's coming from honestly the dumbest place in your brain, which is like the lizard part of your brain, versus responding to something takes a lot of emotional intelligence. It takes separating that emotion that you have and responding with logic, and responding with okay, even though I feel this way and it's very real to me, it's very big, it might feel like 100% to me, even though it's really like a 20% to everybody else, whatever. I'm still going to push that aside, or I'm going to put a pin on that for now and respond in a logical and solution-based mindset. So that's huge. But, you know, what suggestion or what tip or what advice would you have for our audience on how to get to that place? If pretending you were the most emotional person in this world, and, you know, you react to every little thing, even if a fly goes by, how would you communicate that to them?
That's a hard one. Like, because I preach it to anybody, and I'm not perfect, right? But you've got to have a choice. You just have to choose. Like, you have to choose the way you want to live, and you have to choose, I want to be responsive versus like, it really is just a choice, and it's almost like it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, in the workplace, like, people are like, man, you're so calm and nonchalant about that. That's a big deal. Like, I'm nervous, like, or I'm stressed. And it's like, well, get the stress to me. Like, why are you stressed about it?
Yeah.
I can get stressed about it, but guess what? It doesn't change it.
Yeah. There's a quote that I love that says, it's like stressing is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it gets you nowhere.
Exactly.
You know? So
it's like, okay, there's the problem. I'm not gonna get stressed about it. Now let's come up with a way to get past that problem. Everything's speed bumps, right? Failures are speed bumps in life. These things that cause us to be reactional, whether it's breaking a phone, like I was using as an example, something in the workplace, no matter what you're doing, an employee you don't get a lot. It's all speed bumps, right? Yeah. And you've driven a car a lot, right? And you've been in parking lots and speed bumps, right? Has a speed bump ever totaled your car?
No.
Right. Speed bumps don't total cars, right? You keep going. You get past them.
Yeah.
Right? And eventually, there's no more speed bumps. You're on the open road.
Yes.
So it's like, I think that's the mentality you have to have, is like, they're just speed bumps. They're annoying, but you just go past them.
Speed bump.
And eventually, you're going to get to the open road. Speed bumps don't total cars. I say it all the time.
I love
People will
that.
come to me with problems. I was like, cool thing, speed bumps don't total cars. We'll get past this.
Speed bumps don't total cars.
And that's not a
So true.
deflection. Like, that's not a deflection. Like, things are reality, and it really is a speed bump.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is it's not as big as we think it is.
Yes.
Or we make it to be. And so we can, with our mindset, we can get it. But I don't know how to teach that other than by example.
You know, something I think you might have missed that you said yourself was a lot of the times we can't be conscious of every act that we're doing, but when we do catch ourselves or when we have that opportunity to make that decision between, hey, am I going to do this emotionally or reactively, or am I going to respond to the situation? When you consciously think about that and see that fork in the road, take the right decision every time.
100%. And that just requires the mental fortitude and emotional intelligence enough to decipher that moment. It's like my
self-awareness.
My kids I preach this to my kids. I doers do and triers try is another quote I use. But so like my kids don't use the word try anymore. Like they say because then you're committing to do something. So if I try to be less reactive and more responsive, well, guess what happened? Failure is my option. And so I'm going to try. And so if I'm reactive, it's okay. There's no accountability to it. So I say, I'm going to be more responsive versus reactive.
Love that.
And you just frame that's a mental thing. And when you say it out loud too, your subconscious brain hears it, which is 85% of your brain.
Yeah.
And that's the most powerful part. And that's what controls everything. And it doesn't differentiate tone. And so it listens, and there's a true accountability to it. And so you just, hey, I'm going to be responsive versus reactive in this situation. And then you make that choice.
Yeah.
And then eventually you just naturally make that choice because
every time
you're, for lack of a better term, you're training yourself to do it.
Yeah. And that's actually like a scientific term. I think it's called neuroplasticity, where you're basically rewiring your brain every time you make that choice. Yeah. So you're kind of creating these new pathways on how to respond to a situation like that. So the next time it'll just be like an automatic thing for you, right?
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that so much. I actually had like a list of questions for Bryce, and we completely, but I love this. I love this. I love how, this is like the spontaneity of it. And I love everything you've had to say so far, because I think that you're such a guru when it comes to like overcoming failure, to be honest. Like there's other people that just mask it really well, and they pretend that they never go through failure, especially like in this industry. They pretend that they're just like constant winning, and that's awesome to motivate, but it's not very realistic.
Right.
And I love bringing the reality to things, and I like making things more authentic and genuine, and I've always seen you as a genuine person. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I thank you for doing this with me. It's definitely out of my comfort zone, but it was fun. It's good.
Yeah. If you're not following the Instagram, please go follow that. It's at Survive Heartbreak. Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching the podcast, and we'll see you next time.